Welcome back to Naval Action and episode 17 of A Letter to the King. For those of you new to the series, A Letter to the King is my attempt to capture the to and fro of PvP on the PvP Euro 1 server. Well, let's have a look at where we were at the end of last week. And if we recall, over in the Yucatan, the pirates, they seem to be playing a tactical withdrawal where they were screening for their Spanish friends, and their Spanish friends were coming in and taking all the pirate ports. They'd eaten up all these ports in the previous week and basically moving them off the Aussie time zone and onto a European time zone so that the Spanish main corps could defend them. Peace was fractured but still holding over in the Antilles. Haiti was afire, with pretty much every nation bar the US having a foothold on Haiti, and Biffo breaking out left, right and centre. Off the south coast of Cuba, the Spanish and the Brits were going to hammer and tong at it, and really to date the Spanish had pretty much been able to hold the Brits back. The Spanish still held on to the Cayman, Brac, Georgetown, Little Cayman area. The US had pushed down the coast of Florida, but for the first time had met resistance from the Spanish. However, unperturbed by this, the US was still pushing in to the pirates in the Bahamas. And of note was the fact that the Swedes had run themselves all the way up to the top of Haiti, only to be pushed all the way back by the pirates. So what would unfold this week? And you know it's been a good week when you're waking up earlier to play the game than you are to go to work. And such has been the week, a full-on wall-to-wall week of PvP. First news from the Care Bear Cuddle Dolphins and Kittens Alliance down here, where the Dutch, the Danes, the French and the Swedes have all decided that they're not going to fight over here. They're going to export their violence and biff into the main heart of the map. There has been a gain. So last week there was a little bit of naughtiness by a rogue clan, and again this week we've seen a rogue French clan snaffle up two ports, Camp Roy and I can't remember the other one, that belong to the Swedes. This is in contradiction to the Care Bear Cuddles, Kittens and Dolphins Treaty. One would imagine that the less roguish members of the various nations will make sure that those ports are ceded back to the Swedes. But it is a sign that although this is a peace of sorts, it's not a perfect peace. There's still people who are disgruntled. I know there's a fracture in the Dutch as to how the Dutch are playing. I know there's fractures obviously in the French. I'm not quite sure about how the Danes are feeling about the whole thing, or if they care at all. Now, what else has been going on? Well, the pirates are under a great deal of pressure at the moment. And the pirates are feeling the squeeze. So the Swedes really kicked the pirates out of Haiti and then joined in on the island tour that the US began the week before. The US were very quiet during the week, and I was wondering if they'd maybe exhausted themselves with the previous week's exertions, but no. The US further pressured the pirates, and this is the first time I've seen the US be able to do this, fight two enemies at the same time. They also gave the Spanish a bit of pushing out of the Keys. And it has to be said that the US, although they weren't particularly active, they defended reasonably well. I think they lost a couple of ports but made a net gain in the Bahamas. But at the weekend they went bazookas. I think they pulled 5 flags in a kick and a spit and pretty much won them all. So the pirates are really feeling the squeeze now. They're between the US and the Swedes. The Swedes have not got a great deal of capacity to fight on multiple fronts, but what the Swedes certainly are capable of is winning a port battle. I've seen a few screenies from the Swedes, and it's the sort of the Swedes have taken one loss to the opponent's absolute escapee, sunky, captured, surrendered re-obliteration, and they're proving themselves a worthy adversary. I do think it's one group of players who give themselves a strong fourth-rate or shallow water fleet that can contest against the best of them. And so the pirates in the Bahamas are in trouble. It's not the only place the pirates are in trouble. Over in the Yucatan, the pirate withdrawal, where they've basically been screening their own ports to let the Spanish in. Now, this is an interesting one. I know there's a couple of letters that are on the French and the Spanish forums complaining about what the Brits and the Dutch and the Swedes have been doing with port timers, basically moving port timers out of the primary playtime of the French and the Spanish and the Dutch. And I have to say I have some sympathy with this, and it really depends on how you look at the game. So I think firstly we have to remember the game's a work in progress. 6 to 10 weeks from now, the whole mechanics as to how you put a port into combat, how long that combat agitation takes, and the fact that there won't even be flags or timers will mean all of this has changed. Now, there's talk of, we're boycotting it, we don't care anymore. I think the rules are as follows, really. This is it's a world we play in. I think, yes, the server is based in Europe, so it's better for ping times for European chaps. But I've said this before in previous commentary. When you take a port, you set the port to your time. Your opponent now has to take it from you in your time, and then they put it on their time. It's a bit like football with home and away. It's harder to win away. Now, as much as the French and the Spanish can complain about, bloody Brits setting the timers not to our favour, they're ruining it, we're going to boycott, all that sort of complaining, although I have a bit of sympathy with it. Given the Spanish are taking timers over here with the French screening for them and then putting them effectively at 4 o'clock in the morning for the Oceanic players, and this is the only area of the map where Oceania can play, I haven't got much sympathy for it. And having to wake up at 6 o'clock, as we did on 2 or 3 mornings last week, to put some ports back on Oceanic timers so we can get ourselves involved in some port attacks and defence. I've got little sympathy for 1 or 2 ports over here not being set to Happy Lala time. Now, perhaps this is a symptom of the interwar that happened down here, which was basically 4 geographically close nations, the French, the Dutch, and the Swedes, and the Danes all biffing each other up. You can drive a car across these 4 nations in pretty short order, to be honest. And so here, this was probably always a war in, get home from work, get home from school. Oh, look, lots of port timers open. And now all of a sudden, bloody hell, you buggers, that's not a good time for me. I understand that, but basically, world game, US players, Oceanic players, European players, and in 6 to 10 weeks it changes. So just play the game, boys. Let's stop the QQ and the salt. It's all about pixels and having fun and having some battles, so chill, and let's get back on with the biff as we did over here. And the Brits make great gains. The Spanish are really aggressive over here, and they're good as well. Their numbers aren't too big, but the Brits' numbers aren't too big. With the pirates, and there's not many pirates left now, so what was a dozen ships perhaps a month ago is down to, about a month ago it was the pirates who were fighting the Brits and 2 or 3 eager Spanish just jumping in and jumping out in third rates and biffing up fourth rates, or jumping out in fourth rates and buggering up shallow water fleets. Now what's happened is it's completely flipped. We've got 3 or 4 pirates, we know them by name. We've got a couple of Brits who get sunk by them every night, and they've got a couple of them who get sunk by us every night. There's quite a bit of camaraderie actually goes on over here because these guys are known known well. My little pirate sparrow tells me that the clan over here fighting though has pretty much got no help coming in from Pugtown. And as they're fighting a withdrawal, I suspect that's not going to change. And what happens to them when these last four ports go, and that'll happen soon. They'll go yellow or red. What happens to them then? Who knows? And what happens to the Oceanic players when that happens? And there's really, it's just defensive duties against Spanish or waking up at 6 a.m. Who knows? So I think we're all looking forward to the new port mechanics. And let's see how that works out. Anyway, the Brits really did well. They got rid of all the pirate ports. They've pretty much kicked the pirates out of contention south of Jeheil. Some great battles around here. The Spanish turning up in the best, or they're the only guys who really field any significant first-rate numbers. They got themselves, they would have taken Belize had it not been for some really last-minute tagging to stop that. And then one of the great pains in this game is if you do take a first-rate fleet deep into enemy territory, if you don't get the flag planted, you've now got to extricate that fleet. So you can sit in battle screen for the rest of the day, or you can try and get out, and if you try and get out you better all be in a nice big blob, because otherwise you get picked off, and that did happen to the Spanish a little bit, and 2 of their first rates were sunk or liberated. The Spanish hit back towards the end of the week. The Brits had taken Conil and Cuyo. The Spanish hit back and took those. And that was a real night of activity. The Spanish were very cunning. They ran a flag down to pressure, I think it was Turnef, which is around here. I might have covered it up with my stupid pictures. And that was all very good. And then they went for one of these 2 ports. I can't remember which one they did first, Conil perhaps. And that spread the thin British forces. They then did Naughties, which is the guy who had the flag for Turn F, and Turn F is a base the Brits didn't want to lose after pushing the Spanish so far up. He stayed in battle screen after being tagged, and that's basic gittery. I had a chat to the Spanish for doing that, and they said the Brits had done that once to them, so they could now do it whenever they wanted. To be honest, if the Brits did do it, whichever Brits did it, they were wankers. And if you want to copy wankers and become a wanker, and every time you do stuff now you too want to be a wanker, well, so be it. But basically, guys, anyone exploiting, anyone using a smuggler flag to hide in port when you're dropping a flag, anyone keeping a flag in a battle screen, I don't care if you're Brit, I don't care if you're French or Spanish, it's basic wankery. Stop it. You're abusing the mechanics. I don't care if someone did it to you. If all of us just copied the worst of each other, we would all descend to the bottom. Right? We'd all be parachuting out of snakes' asses into the gutter. You shouldn't hold yourself to the lowest thing you've seen your opponent do. That is no way to move forward, chaps. So come on, there's no excuse. So you've done it back, Spain. You've done it back. There's no need to do it again. And Brits, don't do it either. If you are doing it, and if the Spanish said you are, then you probably are. So don't do it. Anyone who exploits, it's wankery. I don't care what side you're on. Stop it. And all this other stuff I hear, I'm just testing the mechanic. If it's a known way of getting around things, it's a known way. Stick a report in the forums, report it once, and then, that's enough. You don't need to test if it's still working an hour later. It will still be working an hour later. So come on, chaps. Let's not all be wankers. This is why we can't have nice things. Brits did well. Spanish, I think, are going to be able to hold the Brits here. I think the Spanish will take these ports back. It's difficult now for the Brits to get in any further because these are all at 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. There's enough Spanish that the Brits will have to defend these every night, otherwise the Spanish will just carry on moving down here and flipping everything to the 4 a.m. timers. So there's work there for the Oceanic. It might only be defensive, but there's work there to be done. I forgot to mention, the Brits snaffled up. There was a shallow water expedition, and it did exceedingly well and picked up all these islands. The Spanish did come in around Placer and Misteriosa, and they captured these islands earlier in the week. However, towards the end of the week, the Brits struck back and took these out. And these are quite strategic ports. Any of these islands in the middle here give you a long strike distance. So they were important ports for the Brits to catch back. Otherwise, it would have opened up this area here for the Spanish. But in saying that, with the US taking the keys here, that also threatens the north of the Spanish play area. So this is an interesting place too. Spain have been really strong this week, and I'd say of the alliance with the pirates, the Spanish, the Danes and the French, it really is Spain who are carrying the fight the most significantly. And it must be a real stretch for them. They have a very different play style to the Brits. They're probably the masters of regional capital port defence. They really are hard to get out of a regional capital. I think in the open world, in close combat, I think the Brits maybe have the edge on them. But in port defence, at the moment, they are a wall. And in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in, because the action around Haiti deserves a bit of zooming in. We'll start off with the fact that the Swedes and the Danes, they fought a bit, but it pretty much didn't change the map. The French and the Danes pushed in to the Spit, and they snaffled up St. Louis, and I can't remember the name of these ports, but they nicked these ports around here. However, the Dutch and the Brits, by the end of the week, had pushed them back to their starting positions. So this is now the furthest forward French port. And the Brits retook these ports here, and the Dutch retook this port here. And again, this is another one where people play differently. The French seem to run their flags very differently. They tend to take have their attacking fleet sitting in a free port, and then they use a lynx to run the flag to the port, and then the attacking fleet moves in. So that's very different than, say, the Brits, who tend to over-organise things. And everyone gets in a queue, has a cup of tea. We have 40 ships when we need 25. We all head off in orderly fashion until we eventually make it into our port defence, and everyone blobs up and follows the flag. And you'll see that's quite typical with the Brits and the Spanish, for example. The French are quite different. They tend to like a runner with the flag, a shallow water runner. And we saw that with the Spanish as well. Up in the Yucatan, they would use a shallow water runner to deliver the flag. Sometimes, not so much for regionals, but certainly for some of the deep ports. The Swedes really bluted the pirates off the north of Haiti. So another bad space for the pirates, another bad result for the pirates this week. And then the Dutch and the Brits kicked the pirates out of Haiti totally. So there's no pirates left in Haiti. It's pirate free. And at the moment, I would say that the Dutch, Swedish, British alliance have their hand firmly on the throat of Haiti. And we'll have to see how the French respond. I know they're really pissed off about the timers, and I do understand that, and I do have a bit of sympathy for it. But not as much. I think you just have to get over it, boys, and organise yourself. Meanwhile, the Great Wall of Cuba has been resolutely defended by the Spanish. They retook, I can never remember, there's Portillo, Iago, Escondido, and another one along here, Guaymas, Seville. They retook this one at the start of the week. The Brits came flying in. They got repelled. There was, however, a fantastic, I'll put a link in my description, a fantastic open world battle. And it's very rare this happens. Two full first-rate fleets got together in a really close engagement, and because the land is involved, basically the Spanish were in a horrible situation where they were completely enveloped by the British forces and sailing with the land to their port side, and they were just stuck in a horrible situation. The wind was no good for them, blowing them into the shoreline. And the Brits absolutely slaughtered them. I think it was something like 16-6, 16-7, first-rate kills. And next week or the week after, we're going to have land in port battles. So this will completely change the dynamic of port battles. And the sort of run around, catch people outside the circle, kite and shoot sails is going to be over. And instead, you're going to be able to wedge your opponent up against the landmass. People are going to get themselves caught in the shallows. It's going to be excellent. So very much looking forward to that. The Dutch made a run at the Spanish. And they actually caught the Spanish out. They never took Iago, which has just been the untakeable. But they did grab up Escondido and Thingomajigo next to it, Guarma Seville next to it. And they held that for a few days. They had another go. I think the Swedes maybe had a go. But in the end, the Spanish said, nah, get nicked. And I think the Brits had taken a port over here that the Spanish took back as well. So, in Cuba, as much as the Dutch, Swedish, Brit, and US alliance is winning over in Haiti, in Cuba, it's still very much the Spanish who are doing the do. Where will we see the biff next week? Well, obviously here. This is where the most ferocious biff will be. Actually don't think there will be biff around Kingston. That's probably not needed anymore. We may see some biff around here and again around Misteriosa Placer. The Yucatan, I think we'll see the end of the pirate presence here, and then I think we'll meet a bit of a stalemate where it will be the Spanish versus the Brits, and I think all the Brits are going to be able to do is defend here because all these timers are going to be at 4 a.m. for the Brits. How will the Americans go in the Keys? That will be interesting. Will they play with the Spanish? That will be interesting. We'll see how that's going. We never know if the other PvP server comes over. That could be a real boon to the US because, of course, it's a US time zone, so that will be interesting. And on the tally of splinters, sail and blood, well, the Brits, 11 ports, and that's predominantly across Haiti and the Yucatan. The Spanish did well overall, but the port tally doesn't tell that story for them, and that's mostly in the Yucatan where they lost ports and a little bit to the US in Florida Keys. The pirates are knackered. 20 ports. They've lost 54 ports in 5 weeks. At the moment, I would describe the pirates as a dysfunctional unit. I don't believe they can do much more than scrabble together a 20-ship fleet if it's within 20 minutes sail of Mortimer. Outside of that, I think right now the pirates are broken. I think they're displeased with the nature of pirate gameplay. I think their big clans are dissolved. There's a few hardy souls carrying on the biff as far as port capture is concerned, but really I think they've lost their taste for port fighting at the moment. It'll come back at some point, but right now they're broken, the pirates. I'll be surprised if they improve substantially in the next 4 weeks, but we'll see. I've been wrong pretty much every week, so you know. The Dutch have done well. They did brilliantly to get into the south side of Cuba, but eventually that fell. The Americans, weekend warriors maybe, but nonetheless they can defend during the week and they can push during the weekend. The French made a slight gain, but that's mostly their rebel clans being naughty down in the Care Bear Confederation. The Danes, a bit sleepy at the moment, the Swedes did fantastically in Haiti. And that's about it for naval action. Oh my god, there's bloody Zubat. Let's get rid of him. That's how you do it in naval action. You've got to cap them all, but we're talking about ports, not friggin' Pokemons. I hope you enjoyed this week's naval action. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. I will see you on the oceans, and I will catch you.